placket. All right. Now we're going to stitch the outside edge of the sleeve. We're going to do that with a French seam, but before we do that, I want to do an ease stitch in the top or the cap of the sleeve, because when you set the sleeve in, the sleeve is slightly bigger than the armhole. So in order to make it fit and make the process of making it fit in easier, you just do a running stitch at the top of the cap of the sleeve, one stitch, and you slightly shirr it in, and it just brings the fabric in a little bit and makes it easier to fit in. So where we are stitching is there are two notches on the cap of the sleeve. So there's a double notch in the back and a single notch in the front. We want to stitch between those two notches, and we're going to stitch 1/4 inch, but you want to increase the size of your stitch length. You want a little bigger stitch length, so go to like 3.5. Drop your needle down, and you can use the edge of your sleeve cap as a guide and just stitch
at a 1/4 inch.
1/4 inch between the two notches.
And you changed it to 3.5?
Say that again?
Changed it to...
About 3.5, yeah. So once you do that, you take your bobbin thread or the bottom thread and just pull it on one side, just a little bit. See what I'm doing? Just a little bit. And then from that gathering, just ease it over towards the top of the sleeve, and then you do the same thing on the other side. Take your bobbin thread or the lower thread and just pull it a little bit. Just make a tiny little gather, and then once you do that, distribute that gathering up towards the cap of the sleeve, and you'll notice that I'm not creating gathers. What I'm doing is I'm just creating some shape in the top of the sleeve. I'm just sort of rounding the top of the sleeve. And so it's not, you don't want gathers, you don't want tucks, you don't want pleats, you want just a little bit of roundness, a little bit of shape in the cap of the sleeve, and it just makes it easier to fit in. Okay, now let's see what we're doing. That side. All right, now we're going to close up we're going to go back to our normal stitch length, 1 3/4, and we're going to close up the side seams of the sleeve. I'm stitching this, remember we're creating a French seam, so I'm stitching the seam on the outside of the garment, which is counterintuitive to any sewing you do, and I'm stitching it at 1/4 inch. I want to go in and trim out any excess threads. Turn it inside out. Press the seam allowance in one direction, doesn't matter what direction, but just press it in one direction. Once you have it pressed, fold it, and then stitch once again, a little bit more than 1/4. Making sure that the seam is exactly on the fold. This is all just standard French seam procedure.
Why on this one don't you cut like a little bit less? Is it just because it's
I just cleaned it. What I'm doing, I'm slightly changing that insofar as that I'm doing 1/4 on the first pass and then a little bit more on the second pass, so that sort of compensates for the trimming. Out. sleeve is done, you want to take it to the ironing board, you want to press the underarm seam. Okay, now we are going to take make sure you find your double notch, and the double notch goes to the back.